The Sumatran orangutan, the last published estimates were around the 7,000 mark. We now know it's slightly more than that, and we'll be publishing that soon, but only because we underestimated in the past, not because the population's gone up. It's certainly gone down. And it's critically endangered on the IUCN Red List, and we just recently put it back on the top 25 world's most endangered primates. Now, Indonesians always say, 7,000 orangutans, what are you worried about? That's loads. I say, well, remember that Man United's football stadium seats 80,000 people. So all the Sumatran orangutans in the world would easily sit in the seats just behind one goal at one end of that stadium. So the next time you see Wayne Rooney taking a penalty, remember that that could be all the Sumatran orangutans in the world. The biggest threat to Sumatran orangutans is forest loss, and the biggest cause of forest loss is this, palm oil. And the reason lots of forests are being converted to palm oil is because we keep buying the stuff. It's in so many different products in my house and yours. You know, even no matter how you try to avoid it, you're going to have some palm oil in your house somewhere. It's not just foods and biscuits as well, it's cosmetics and lipsticks and shampoos and everywhere. This, incidentally, is what it looks like. It's like a miniature coconut. So that the palm oil itself is in this yellow husk, and then the stuff in the white meaty bit in the middle is what they call palm kernel oil. So what do the apes do? The orangutans just move into the nearest city, just like they do in the movies, don't they? No, they don't. They get killed as well. Now, some of them are lucky enough to maybe wander into some nearby forest, but that's already full. So they're going to die of starvation, malnutrition over the short term or the medium term. A lot of animals are deliberately killed. To kill an orangutan, you know, if I said to one of the vets here or the keepers, says, could you go into that enclosure over there with Dagu, get him out of a tree, carry him 10 kilometers and tie him to another tree in Roselle without the use of anesthetic? And they said, impossible, absolutely impossible. Indonesians do it all the time. People have been rescuing and rehabilitating orangutans since the early 70s. And they've been in magazines and on TV countless times, BBC Wildlife and ITV shows and everywhere. And it hasn't really made any difference to this at all. You know, your orangutan diaries, there are more orangutans being rescued and needing rehabilitation and reintroduction than there's ever been. Way more. And it's probably going to go up. So that's the point of that, is don't think, you know, despite all the publicity it gets, the problem is worse than ever. So we're effectively establishing two brand new populations of a critically endangered species in its former range, but outside its current range, which is exactly what we need to do as a safety net to protect this species. If Ebola virus or some other disaster befell the Leuser ecosystem, we would still have some orangutans living wild in Sumatra from which we could build something else. We also have tigers and elephants wandering around in Janto. We've got a nice little camp here at one side of the river, and the river is usually crossable on foot. Unfortunately, the orangutans don't come back, so we don't have problems of orangutans raiding bananas and things like that in the store. The cages are across the river, and we can usually drive across in the off-road cars. So all the orangutans that we get, all the illegal pets, and a few of these rescued ones, if they're injured in the process, will come to our clinic, which is just 1 hour outside the city of Medan. There we have isolation cages, so they have to do at least 1 month's quarantine. We have a vet clinic there, which is quite well equipped nowadays. Large socialization cages, and we just renovated this new infant facility as well. Now, every orangutan, you usually give them a few days to recover from the trip, because often, you know, you're bringing them in from 12, 15 hour journeys to the quarantine. Then we'll anesthetize them, give them a full medical, plant ID chips, tattoos, and all that kind of stuff. Most of them are fairly fit and healthy. Every single one of them has massive parasite load, every single one of them, but that's relatively easy to treat. Occasionally we have surgical issues to deal with, you know, broken bones, especially if they fall out of a tree during the reintroduction process. We just did one last week, actually. So that's always a risk. This is an interesting one. This is fixing an Achilles tendon. Now, if you add up all the orangutans rescued and rehabilitated in Indonesia and Malaysian Sabah since 1970, you're talking at least 3,000 confiscations, of which I know of 4 prosecutions. 2 in 2010 in Borneo, 1 in 2012 in Sumatra we did with WCS, and then just recently, a couple of weeks ago actually, another case with WCS we did, Chitaria, and this one got a 2-year prison sentence, which is the heaviest sentence anybody's ever got for trying to trade an orangutan, and a $10 million or $1,000 fine. So it's getting better slowly, but we're right on the very first step. But law enforcement has to dramatically improve in Indonesia if we're to save anything, basically. So we've always wanted to be able to radio track these animals. Now, the standard way of doing that is collars. Orangutans are extremely strong, extremely destructive. There's a good chance that they will destroy the collar or they will damage themselves in the process of trying to destroy the collar. They also have these big throat sacs, which are extremely prone to infections. So we don't really want anything that might cause injuries. Somebody came up with this idea to use these little chips. Now, these little chips, about the size of a 10-pence piece, can go under the skin on the back of the neck and, in theory, don't do any damage. And they'll give you a signal for about 2 years, which is what you need to know if an orangutan is going to survive or not. After that, you don't need it. But only over a range of a few hundred meters. So you still pretty much have to be at the bottom of the tree to know that it's there. And also, we found that these chips are not working well. A lot of them are failing after a year or two and they're cracking. So the SOCP and myself actually stopped using them. All the other projects are still using them. And I'm sat there thinking, well, we had a batch that all broke down in 6 months. Are you telling me you're happy that these are going to be safe in 50 years' time? Because they have to be safe for 50 years if you're going to put them into an orangutan. Otherwise, what's the point? And what's the point of releasing an orangutan who you know has survived 2 years and then dies 5 years later because of a chip that you put into it? That makes no sense. But anyway, we're working with the experts. We're very close to being able to radio track orangutans. We're just not quite there in a way that is safe enough to do it right now. But I think another year or two and we will be there. There's plenty of people working on it right now. Now, the great thing, if we can do that, is we're also doing a lot of work with drones. We've used them a lot for spying on palm oil plantations. We're using them to identify nests, orangutan nests, and hopefully census orangutans. We're using them with radar to look at forest canopy structure and all these other different things. But I want to be able to monitor these orangutans with drones. And I think if we can crack this radio telemetry chip, then within 18 months, 2 years, we'll be able to detect these chips from the drones. So rather than us having to have 20 people in the forest looking for orangutans over a few kilometers, we're going to be able to survey 20,000 hectares in 3 hours. And if we can do that every 3 weeks, we know that Johnny is still alive because he's moving from A to B every week, and Bobby is probably dead at the bottom of in a stream because he hasn't moved for 3 months. And so that is going to be a real game changer. The orangutan haven concept, we've released now, must be about 280 orangutans back to the wild, but over those years we've accumulated 4 orangutans that we can never release. So we came up with this. I was sat there one day thinking, well, orangutans live for 50 years in the wild, and we don't want them spending the next 50 years in these little cages. So why don't we do something like we did at Durrell and build some nice islands with vegetation and bamboo and plants and streams and the wind in their hair and everything, and give them something like that to live out their days, because they're never going to be wild orangutans again. So we started looking at that. We started looking for land that had that potential. This is the concept. Nice little Jersey type islands there, look. Isn't that familiar? But we've got 48 hectares, which I'm not sure how big this zoo is, but it's twice that at least. We're twice as big as what Jersey has here. So we have huge potential, much more than just an old people's home for the orangutans. So we've come up with a much bigger concept now of like education center, ecology center, demonstrating green technology and all that kind of thing. Organic farming, we've already got quite a lot of experience of that as well. And other species conservation projects. So it's still very much at the small stages. We've got the land, we've secured the land with loans. Now we're trying to raise enough money to build a main artery road through the site so we can actually start gradually constructing and developing things. And we need to get some sort of expertise in there to help us on the very early stages too, to make sure we don't make any mistakes, like hydrologists and things. This is what it looks like. This is durian trees, looking down the valley. So it's agroforest. It's absolutely dream place to build a zoo. And this area here, there's like a big valley in the middle that potentially could have sort of 14 sort of Jersey Zoo style islands for orangutans in it. It's the water level is right up in that grass. It's kind of like rice paddy. So I'm sure that if we just dig around and build the islands up, we can do that. So it's got a lot of potential. It's in a location which couldn't be better. We're just like 35 minutes from the main city of Medan, but up to 3 million people. It's in an area frequented by the middle-class Chinese on their hash house weekend runs and the Rotary clubs and Lions clubs and things. And those are exactly the kind of people we want to come here, because those are the people whose decisions in their office on a daily basis decides what happens to orangutan habitat at the other side of the island. We've got 48 hectares of this beautiful area, right? You could have how many captive breeding environments there that nobody would see? You know, you could have them 100 meters apart from each other. The potential is huge for getting involved in Jersey-style conservation projects. I saw this, I don't know why I put it in, but I saw it and I thought, yeah, that's interesting, yeah. When the Voyager 1 went through to the end of the solar system in 1990, Carl Sagan asked them to turn it round and take a picture of the Earth, and it's this, what they call the famous blue dot, pale blue dot. It's not very, you'd have to turn the light down actually to really see that, but there's a whole bunch of little dots all over the place and one blue one, and I always thought, well, we've only got one of those, and we're really making a mess of it. We're really screwing it up. So wouldn't it be wise to change the way we do things? So you have to actually step back now and say, well, you know, what is the future? But what we know is that something drastic has to change. The business as usual system of, you know, making money, maximizing profits because of this, because there's a demand and everything, it's got to change. It has to change. Otherwise, you know, forget it. We're just driving towards our own extinction.